We camped at Bookshelf Mountain on the doorstep of the Warrumbungles National Park in central New South Wales. This area is home to the Siding Springs Observatory and is famous for its incredible scenery and amazing astronomy due to the clear nights and low light pollution. We thoroughly enjoyed exploring this area. G'day and welcome to Off-Grid Earth. Today we have something really special. We're out near Coonabarabran in the Warrumbungles and we're visiting the Emu Hive with Mark and Wendy Osmond, and they are off-grid and they have a budding emu farm. And look at these guys, how cute and amazing are these guys. We're going to learn all about emu farming, we're going to learn about off-grid systems and astronomy and a whole bunch of stuff. There we go. All right, so this is going to be a great episode. Don't miss this. And we've probably got at least half an hour. There's so many things to see around here, so stick with us and we're going to take you on a great journey. We commenced our visit with astronomy lessons using Mark's backyard telescope, the likes of which are common in the area. The kids had an absolute ball learning all about outer space. We progressed into the mini solar system tour before discussing two separate off-grid systems, Yurt construction and living, and the basics of emu egg incubation. From the 30-minute mark in this video, we delve more deeply into emus and the benefits of emu farming. So if you'd like to learn all about this new industry, stick with us to the very end. Yeah.
And the size of Beetlejuice is the size of the house.
Yeah, and the size of Canopus.
The
size of the property.
The size of the property. So the whole idea of this is autumn. So this is where the Earth is in autumn, compared to the sun, and that's where Australia is. And so as
we made sure we got the most important country on there.
Yeah, it's the only country on the Earth. and so in the way that it works in autumn is that you get the same amount of sun for the day as the same amount of dark that you get at night. So when we go round, Australia becomes dark, and it's dark all the way through where my hand is, and then the morning time comes and the sun comes up in the east, and then the sun's shining on us from over there, and we stay in sunshine. We stay in sunshine until then we go to dark. We have 12 hours of dark and we have 12 hours of sun. The solar lens, which is like welder's glasses.
Oh look, it says Orion on it. Really? Yeah, cool. That'll be good.
All right. So the app's, what's the app called?
Sky Safari something or other.
Sky Safari,
Sky Safari
and you've put in there, go to the sun.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll stop on the sun.
Yeah, it did. But you go.
There's a big orange disc there, and at the moment there's no sunspots on the sun.
Can you see the sun?
No, I can see a person. She can see herself.
Oh yeah, just the solar disc, eh?
It's the solar disc.
Is anything else?
No, that looks pretty sunspot free at the moment.
Extremely sunspot free. I think
we're right between. I saw the other day that we've got a solar cycle 24 and a solar cycle 20. Reverse polarities right next to each other.
Correct. Very unusual. Extremely unusual. But if you want to have a look at, here's some pictures of nebula. So that's the nebula in Orion.
Wow, there you
go. See that?
So let's have a look at that one.
See those sort of colours in that?
Orion Nebula.
Orion Nebula. And then when you get really, really patient, and astrophotography takes a lot of patience.
So what sort of exposure are we talking about?
30-second exposure for the camera, holding everything really, really still, having this move in conjunction with the Earth and the distant object. So it's all calibrated, and it's very, very difficult to do. So, you know, you look at it and say, oh yeah, it's not bad. So here, that is a galaxy. So that's a galaxy 18 million light years away. So it's taken 18 million light years for that light to get to us. It's called the Sombrero Galaxy. So this, where we're standing here, was a volcano. This volcano blew up 16 million years ago. So the light from there left 2 million years before this volcano blew up. That's a ridiculous
So
thing.
what you're looking at there, that light's 16 million years old.
We're on a little tiny spire called the Orion Spire of our galaxy.
Look how important your name is, Orion.
Seriously, you're everywhere. This is one of my favourite galaxies. This is Centaurus Galaxy, and it's a galaxy that we're looking sideways on with it, but it's really fat galaxy, so it's really thick compared to our galaxy. So our galaxy, if you measured the width of our galaxy, which is from one side to the other, I think it's about 115,000 light years wide.
That's depth.
No.
That way or across.
Depth top to bottom, I think it's something like 30,000 light years,
Right.
but 115,000 light years wide.
Right. This is the original house. This is where it all started. The van, where everything always starts on these properties. And Mark was just saying, he was having it was pretty awesome when the original off-grid system went in and he had the electric blanket. I had that moment when the ice came out of the ice maker on my fridge. Yours was the electric blanket. Everyone who goes off-grid has the moment.
Yeah, the electric hot water bottle.
So this is the original off-grid system. This property actually has two off-grid systems now. We'll talk a bit more about that. SP Pro 482, 7.5 kilowatts of continuous delivery. Fronius 8 with about 8 kilowatts of solar. I'm thinking it was a little while ago since it was put in, probably 300 wattish panels, something like that, Trina panels. And then 48 kilowatt hours of VAE gel storage. Now this system's been in a couple of years now, and check out the little design here. It was originally done underneath the canopy of this caravan, humpy, sort of original living quarters, but two sheds butted together, and just concrete. So we didn't even have concrete flooring; it was just concrete tiles. And then look, the batteries are just they're wired. You just cut a hole through that shed into this shed. All sorts of ways of doing off-grid systems, but hey, it worked, didn't it? It made sense for the corner to have this space where we're standing here not taken up by a shed. You wanted that open. That's where the ride-on lawnmower goes now. See?
Absolutely. The golf carts used to park there.
So, and this system serviced this property for a couple of years, but as the Emu business grew, things like the incubator put pressure on the ability for this system to deliver. These guys like their spars as well, so that was putting pressure on it.
Putting pressure on it, absolutely.
So,
and the breeding season for the emus is very inconvenient. In the
Inconvenient.
middle of winter,
Right,
and the
that's
short
it.
days.
So
And,
everything came together to go, this needed an upgrade. So the upgrade happened, and there was a few options with that. It looked like it may have gone in the direction of embedding this system into a bigger system. Obviously with Selectronic you can do that. You can have a 120 volt big system, and you create a microgrid where the smaller 48 volt systems embedded inside it. But in this case you wanted to keep them separate. They didn't need to go together necessarily, and the loads could be isolated.
And there was distance involved. So
And there was some
running
distance,
cables.
extra cost, but also just the idea that just gave you a bit better peace of mind that there was two isolated systems. If something happened to one,
Yep.
there was another one still existing. So everyone has their different preferences. So this property is unique in a sense because it has two relatively new and high quality off-grid systems with a lot of capacity running two separate portions of the property. So let's go and visit the new one.
Have a look at that.
Diesel, petrol, high convenience to off-grid generator via hose that reaches to generator. Like that sort of convenience. Old man Emu, old man Emu, we keep on rolling. Where are all the emus gone?
They followed the kids.
They followed the kids, they're not interested in us. We've got to catch up. So 16 kilowatts of solar out here on the big array, on the new array.
Divided into two. So 2 8-kilowatt systems, basically. Fronius.
Two Fronius 8 inverters.
Yeah. Batteries are undercover.
The containers come underground. We're underground here,
underground.
We're covered over. Containers are wrapped in a thick rubber lining, and this is a bug out shelter. This is a survivalist zone.
Well, in 2013 we had huge fires that came
Huge
through.
fire, that's the other thing, fire bunkers.
It's a legitimate,
Yeah.
you know, if we're overrun by fire, we can get in here with the birds and escape, so we've got somewhere to go.
Exactly.
And we've got a water supply in here, we've got electricity supply, 12 volt, 24
And
volt.
is that the only way that you can enter from the other end of the end of both ends?
Front door from the other end.
Yep.
So once we're here, you can talk about your
Yeah, so this is the upgraded system. Look at this big chunky 120 volt SP Pro. So
which is currently in the float.
plenty of power.
Plenty of power.
We're coming under the shortest days of the year.
Yeah.
It was sort of a cloudyish day.
Yeah.
And you're drawing a fair bit with the egg incubator and other bits and
Well,
pieces.
the incubator's not running off this; it's running off the other
I've got
system.
the other one. Yeah.
So at the moment we're still running the spa with
Yep.
the air conditioner running up at the house. So
Yep.
we're only running one house.
Yep.
But we're, you know, at the moment it's throttled back to only 400
So
watts or
it's
so.
only trickle charging.
Trickle charging, and we're fully charged. We're in the float, absolutely fully charged, and with the batteries we got 250 or 253 kilowatt hours with the batteries.
So your batteries
stored in there.
So batteries in here, you don't access those batteries.
Never, no. So we've just got them covered so that we can use storage over the top of them. Everything just remains cool in here. On the 43-degree day that we had recently, this last summer, it was 29 degrees in here. So it was very cool. And that's with these running, each of them somewhere around about 8 kilowatts. So I've seen both of these run at 16 kilowatt.
Very good. So yeah, batteries under here. So there's 60.
62
What was it? 2,000 amp hour batteries. Were there? No,
Yeah,
not that big.
No, I don't know what the hell.
It's maybe 1200 amp hour. So
Yeah, maybe 1200 amp hours at a chance.
so it generates 240 odd kilowatt hours storage.
253
253 kilowatt hours of
kilowatt hours
storage.
of storage. With all the batteries nicely lined up there, the heavy as all hell.
So-
not going anywhere.
So it's a big system, but it's to support what is going to be a fair load.
2 homes.
on
It's going to support 2 homes.
2 homes
essentially.
and a tourist accommodation and a
Yeah.
business. So there's a lot going on there. And always look at the size of the chunk on these things. Delivering 20 kilowatts of continuous power. That is a big one, isn't it?
It's huge.
Is that the 15 or the 20?
20.
Yeah, it's 20.
And I mean that looks a bit, well, it's really rudimentary, but it's a fan that just blows up and keeps the circulation going.
We've got Select Live, which is the monitoring for Selectronic systems, so you
Yeah.
can keep an eye on it all.
The Select Live on both of them.
We just got some little cables running around here.
Yeah, so that's
Conduits
cables.
aren't too big.
No, and that's running back to the other system and to the other house.
Yeah. What was the top temp in here in the summer months? I mean, it only gets a bit of sun right
28.
very fun. So it's 28 was
28 degrees with these running
Yeah.
that I needed in here.
On a
So,
45-degree day.
On a 45-degree day, and that's because that's with that door closed and the make-up air comes in under the containers,
Yeah, cool.
and it gets drawn out through.
So that was
through
the benefit
exhaust
of
fan.
that little room as well. It draws in
Yeah.
the cool air from down low off the ground.
Sure. And you can go to the toilet if you have to.
If you're shitting yourself in the fires.
But it's, you know, it's common sense. It makes sense, and it's a really useful storage area, nice and solid
Yeah.
and dry.
There you go. There you have it. Big off-grid system. Loving it. All right, Mark's going to show us the Yurt.
The Yurt. Go on in.
So this is
This is bundles.
bungles.
This is
And
Princess
pebbles.
Parrot. We hand thread bundles. He's having a little laugh there, and
He talks, is he?
he talks.
Yeah. What's that noise that he's doing? Is that their normal noise, or is that things? he's
No,
doing?
it's the noise that we taught him. So it's
It's a pretty flash looking table. I like that.
yeah, that's a recycled timber table. So we're currently standing in one of the annexes of the Yurt. So this
Right.
is the Yurt here. So go to Mongolia, go to the Himalayas or whatever.
This is
A Yurt.
yeah.
So this is the whole centre of the Yurt, which has got a great big thick 1-inch wire all the way around it, and so it's all about wind protection. And so when the wind hits the round building, it goes around it, as opposed to a square building, it pushes it over. So it's all Mongolian with all the wind and all the issues that they get up in the Himalayas.
And was your drive to build this here to do with wind, or was it to do with aesthetic, or was it to do with some other feature that would suit this environment?
Everything fitted the glove. It's like 5 fingers went straight into the glove. So we've got the wind, we've got the ability to look all the way around the house. It was the right price. It was a flat pack. It was made elsewhere, and it came up, and went up in 10 days.
Right.
Really,
Yeah.
really
So
fast.
it was.
So you put down a base, which is like a very big pizza base, and all the pieces just go up like pizza slices. And you work out what you want. So there's 16 sections to this house. It's a 6-metre yurt. An 8-metre yurt, I think, has got 8 sections, bigger, wider sections. So where the guys are with the bird there, that little dining room entry area or back door entry area that we've got there, that's 4 slices. We've got 3 slices for a bedroom. We've got 2 slices in here for our bathroom. We use 1 slice for the entry, the formal entry. And have a look in here. This gives you an idea what the bedroom looks like.
So this is a space for 2 people. It's really comfortable.
For 2 people, it's really good. And what we're making in the new place, so we got a built-in robe at one end of the bedroom. So this is 3 slices, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So a queen size bed, really easy.
Yeah.
So the new building that we're building as a guest house is going to have 3 bedrooms.
Right.
So we just eliminated the entry because we only need one way to come into the building.
Right, but it's the same size yurt.
Exactly the same size yurt.
And do you put them up? Are you putting these up yourself, like when they arrive? Did you do it yourself, or you had someone do
You
it?
can do. So you can buy this as a kit. It just turns up flat pack, and then you put it together.
But it's
But
better.
we
It's better to
use-
get someone to do it.
Better to get somebody to do it. So we use the guys from Roundhouses Australia at Goulburn. So it's made in Goulburn, transported up here, bang.
And they know how to do it.
They know the angles. Everything's preset. Everything's drilled, ready to go. So here we've got a kitchen. We just used a off-shelf kitchen type thing. And we've got a pantry. So this is really just set up for 2 people with really luxurious living. Really very, very comfortable. So we've got a nice big pantry where, we sort of have 4 or 5 of everything, and we sort of first in, last out sort of stuff. And
a cost-effective build.
really cost effective. This went up, fitted out with kitchens, the whole thing for less than $300,000.
Okay.
And it's a decent sized house.
Yeah.
So, but what you can do with the yurts is really, really interesting. You can have a big yurt like this, and then you can have satellite yurts coming off it. So you could just have the yurt section.
Yeah.
That might be the master bedroom, and then you can have a hallway going off to that, and then a hallway going off to the next one. So you can.
So you got Yurt City.
You can make this thing sort of. You could make like a little miniature Jupiter with its moons. We have Jupiter and lots of little. Moons
I bet, is that an idea? That's a real idea.
It's a real idea.
Go Yurt.
Go with it.
Sort of like yogurt.
But it's absolutely beautiful. With the cupola in the centre, and keeping it cool because it's off the ground, insulated from under the floor.
When the kit, it's just the kit as an empty shell, and then you fit it out how you like.
Yes.
So that's how it arrives. And so what's just the basic kit worth from, was it Gold? What did you say?
Yeah, well the one we're building up there, just to throw some real numbers at it, the one we're building up there, the 3-bedroom kit is about $170,000.
Yeah.
Delivered.
Yeah.
And they're putting it together for us for about $50,000. Then you got to fit it out. Then you got to put your floor, your electrical, your plumbing, your bathroom, your kitchen.
Yep.
So there's another $100,000, which adds up to all of that. You can do it cheaper, you can do it yourself or whatever. But we've got a local guy. We're trying to support the local community as much as we can. So we've got a local guys doing the kitchen.
Remember, everything in here is running renewable, free from the sun. Just the way we like it. Hello. There's bungles and
with water from underground. So we.
Oh, what's it?
We're not harvesting from water from the brick.
sandstone filtered water from the bottom.
So do you want to have a look at some emus?
Let's go. Yes. All electric, powered by the sun. Off to go and check out some emu eggs. Woo, woo. So this is the incubation room?
This is the beginning of the whole process.
Beginning of the process.
The beginning of the process. So we do have our actual incubator is in town at the moment, getting more racks put into it to make it more efficient. And the birds have laid early, so we've got the incubation process happening at the moment. So we're incubating in the hatchery, so which is part of our redundancy process. So we can incubate in the hatchery. So you can see the eggs that are located in there. I'll get one out for you in a second. And we've got a little light in there. We control the temperature. We've got a two-stage controller here. So you can see we've got one stage of heating on, and then we have a second stage of heating, which means that 2 stages of heating will get the temperature up really quickly to the 36.5 degrees that we need it to run at. And then the first stage heating drops out. Sorry, the second stage heating drops out, and the first stage heating will just control it once it's at that temperature, which keeps the load off the solar system. So we're using about 400 watts, kilowatt hour, 400 watts an hour out of this. So when we've got the 2 of them going, the actual incubator is smaller, so it's more energy efficient. And by the time you get it full of eggs, it holds the heat, so it's even more efficient.
Right.
So we're using about 1 kilowatt per hour down here. Just
It's still quite significant when we're
It's a
talking
lot.
24 kilowatts a day on an
24
off-grid
kilowatts.
system. That's a standard house.
Yeah, we got an
Just
8 kilowatt, that's in the standard house. We've got an 8 kilowatt system, so that's why we've had to double up on the system. So we've got 48 kilowatt hours with the battery there, so we can go a couple of days without power. Plus we've got the generator back up if we have to. And so from here we monitor the temperature with visual remote or visual indication. So it's at 36.4 degrees. That's at the top, and 36.7 at the bottom, which doesn't make sense, but that's what's happening. And we control the humidity, so we're currently around about 37% humidity, which is about where we want it to sit. Any wetter than that, the egg doesn't process as much and as quickly. It absorbs too much moisture out of the egg. And Dad does this all by himself by fluffing his feathers up and decreasing his feathers. And any drier, you dry the egg out because the shell of the egg is porous, and the egg will lose 15% of its weight over the 7 weeks.
Right.
So in here we have the eggs that we've just put in today. And so this is egg number 1 for 2020 season, and we've marked on there the date that we've started the incubation, and we've marked on here, I don't know why I've got the 7th there, should be the 5th, but and here we've got the date that it's due to hatch, and we put an X on the top and an O on the bottom, and we've got to rotate these things 3 times a day. So we play noughts and crosses. So at the moment they're all marked X, which means that they're all up, and come dinner time we'll come and turn them over, and in the morning.
Early in the morning, right? So you don't have to get up in the night to tend
No,
to.
so we breakfast, lunch and dinner. So breakfast, lunch and dinner is the process. You can get automated hatcheries and incubators, but that's just one step too far.
So this is to keep the space warmer in the really cold conditions, is it?
In the really cold conditions, because the other part of the whole thing is we've got to have fresh air going through there. So we've got air going in through here and air coming out, which we've got on forced fans. So we're taking oxygen in because the eggs will need to, they put out methane, so you've got to discharge the methane. And when the chicks start to develop, they need oxygen in the process. So in about 3 weeks, they'll start consuming quite a lot of oxygen. So to keep this process going through. If we're sucking air in here, it's -6. It's not really good for the heater in there. It's going to run flat
So
out.
that's to help that.
That's to help that. So we increase the temperature in the room by using the fireplace.
And what's a piece of infrastructure like that worth? I'm guessing that's not cheap.
No. It's far from expensive. The controllers and all that sort of stuff, maybe $1,500, and then by the time you get the room made up, maybe another $1,500. So $3,000 you've got this made up, which is not expensive at all. So when the chicks arrive, we've got these little pens. So we make up little pens, and we'll make up a series of these little pens which will sit just here. We've got a brood box, which I'll show you in a second. And so they will remain there warm, and the brood box has got a heater in it, which also Wi-Fi, so that has got remote controls, that Wi-Fi or sensors, that Wi-Fi back to this little receiver here, which Wi-Fi is back on my phone. I get an alert on the phone if it gets too hot or it gets too cold. Instantly I can come down here and find out what's going on. So we move the chicks, will arrive in here, and they'll start in their brood box, and here are the brood boxes in the next section, which is currently full of stuff that's got to go into the new development, the new Yurt. But here is the brood box. So we will put them into, we have a smaller brood box which turns on its side, and a larger brood box, And then we've got heater elements in there and the heater controls at the top, and once again no Wi-Fi. We've got to maintain temperature in there around about 20 degrees. So we keep the chicks warm in there. We put rubber matting down on the ground, and so they're not standing on concrete, so it's nice and cool, or nice and warm for them. And then during the day, we run the chicks out into the chick run, which is basically out here. So we'll run them out, and we've got pens that are set up. You can see that it's all fox-proof. So, and fox-proof and eagle-proof.
It goes right, I can go right out.
All the way through, all the way out past the yards and into what we call a utility paddock, and then from there we can move them out.
So
through
they just transition out as they get bigger.
They go here.
And at what stage are they sort of eagle-proof? Yay, high maybe?
Yeah, when they're about the size of an eagle, so he doesn't want to pick up its
It's
own
about 3
body
months
weight.
old, or?
Yeah, 3 to 4 months old.
Right.
So we.
You look very serious. Are you concentrating?
Yes. Okay, now which way?
Don't run into the garden.
Keep going. So tell us, you described the tourist accommodation there, but you're going to bring folk up from Sydney,
Yeah.
or from the coastal regions.
So we're going to do a private charter. So we're going to get 6, maybe 7 guests, but usually 6 guests. We're going to pick them up in a Mercedes limousine van. Pick them up from their home or a single location in Sydney, Central Coast or Newcastle, then bring them up either through Mudgee or the Hunter Valley, where we'll take them to a really nice restaurant and they can have a meal there, buy some wine tasting.
I'm sure they're going to have Emu on that menu.
It's both of the restaurants that we're going to do have emu meat and emu eggs and whatnot, and so we'll be able to take them from there. And then we're going to do the solar system drive. So we're going to do the virtual solar system. We're going to start at Pluto, and we're going to go through all.
Which is a long way away.
Which is a long way away. Pluto is a 2-hour drive that way or that way.
Yeah.
And then we'll drive all the way through. You know, we then take the guests and complete the solar system drive by going via Mars, and then we hit Earth. So we're into the rocky planets, and then we'll go up to the Sighting Springs Observatory,
Which is equivalent of the sun.
The Sighting Springs Observatory. The dome is the size of the sun. So, and as you go past, you look at all the planets on the boards, and little tiny Mercury is like the size of a golf ball or something like
So
that.
it's tiny.
And then by the time you get up there, so we'll do that, and then we'll take them into the Warren Bungalows and just have a little gentle walk,
Beautiful.
1 kilometre walk halfway there and back to the viewing platform, and then come back here, and then you know where you'll stay on the guest accommodation, the deck. The handrail of the deck will be right here, and the emus will be right there, right in front of the tree. And then we've got a big solar system screen where we can project onto there what the solar system's happening, and then drive the telescope to go and have a look at what we're looking at. Then we can attach the camera to it, and you or the guest can press a button, take the photo of that nebula, and we'll download it for you, so you can take that away with you. So you can.
Who would have thought you could bring such just totally opposite things together as seemingly as emus and astronomy? But here it is. This is the place to do it.
Well,
the Emu Hive.
if you look at the solar system and you look at
Oh,
our
that's
galaxy,
right.
we've got the emu in the sky.
There it
we
is.
are under the emu in the
It
sky.
makes perfect sense.
It's logical.
That's right. I get it now. It's all come together. So, I guess the short version of that is, if you want to have the ultimate emu experience, this is going to be the place to do it.
Yeah.
And just chucking a little bit of astronomy on the side. We're in Jurassic Park, Coonabarabran style. I think an Emusaurus. Yeah, dad joke.
Yes, that's
So broadleaf weeds, so you get cathead burr, all sorts of stuff.
They eat all that.
They will get in there and they will eat all of that. So there's just an absolute brilliant Australian farming solution. Big white feet, they're careful where they walk, they don't tend to track anywhere except around the perimeter of the fence. And the facts about emu farming are just mind-blowing. You know, there's one emu will drink 70 litres of water a month. A cow does that in a day. One emu will produce, well, for every kilo of table meat that you get from an emu, it will consume 70 times less fodder or feed than a cow would. So if you were grain feeding cattle and grain feeding emus, it's going to be 70 times more efficient. The water efficiency is absolutely incredible. The fact that they don't trample the ground is absolutely incredible. Having to have tall fences to keep them contained within your property means that the kangaroos aren't there, which means that the grass gets better, which means that you have got to do less supplemental feeding because they're eating more of the grass that's on the ground. So it just gets better and better and better. And then when you got longer grass, when you get a light rain shower, 5 mil to us is like 20 mil to a heavily grazed paddock, because the water hits the ground, stays in the ground, and it doesn't get blown away by the next wind that comes along, with the wind blowing across the surface of the ground, which means that you got better soil retention, you got better enzymes in the ground, everything just gets better and better and better.
So this really should be a much bigger industry.
We're hoping to make it a bigger industry. So we've been talking to our local minister. We're also talking to other groups that are interested in trying to make this bigger, so that we've got the efficiencies of meat, the efficiencies of the oil, the leather, everything is used from the bird. It's quite incredible. The difficulty with the emu is they don't transport well. So you can't bundle them all into a cattle truck and then take them to the abattoir. So what we're hoping to do is get on-site harvesting processing going, and we look as though we're going to get some government support for this. For so specialised mobile units that will go around and go to the So a mobile unit will come to the farm. They will then harvest the bird, and then the bird is transported as a carcass, which takes away all the stress and all of that goes on with the animal. So it's just finished. And then you do short-term transport. So what we're hoping to do is just bring back some local farming, some local sovereignty, and you can do this individual in a little town. So that you don't need a huge facility. Once you've got a great big carcass of a bird, you just take it to the butcher, and then the butcher will process that bird and cut it up into the various cuts of meat. And so you don't need a massive plant and all these workers going to that plant. You can have 4 or 5 little smaller butchers that are specialising in their cuts and turning that out. But what's really interesting is the meat from an emu is another story all over again. There's a problem that Australia has. Australia's the second highest incidence of it in the world. America's the highest. Everything's got to be better and bigger in America, but anyway. So it's a tick called the Lone Star Texas tick, and it bites you. And once you've been bitten by this tick, you are then allergic to red meat. You cannot eat red meat. You'll get an anaphylactic reaction and potentially die. And so it's called mammalian meat allergy, MMA. So mammalian meat allergy, there's about 30 or 40,000 sufferers in Sydney alone, which means that if little Johnny or Ryan in the family has got that allergy, you cannot have red meat in that family, because one drop of that blood goes into his meal, he's going to have that reaction, which is really bad.
Right.
And so it means that you might have 40,000 sufferers, but really you've got 80 or 90,000 people that are affected by the problem. The interesting thing so they can't ever have red meat. So that's red meat from a kangaroo.
And that tick exists in Australia as well.
Yeah, and it's becoming more prevalent because it's carried by the bandicoot. And we're doing such a good job of getting rid of the foxes that the bandicoots are coming back in strength. They'll run around your garden, particularly in Sydney, Central Coast, up through Queensland. And you be out there gardening or playing in the garden, soccer or doing whatever, you get hit by one of these ticks, bang, you're gone instantly. It changes, it does something to the sugar enzymes and stuff in your blood. It means that a sufferer can only eat fish or chicken. That's it.
And emus are a big chicken.
Emus are a big chicken, and emus produce red meat, which has got all the red meat benefits of mammalian meat. So you get the iron, you get the taste, you get the look, all of that sort of stuff. So back on the menu comes spaghetti bolognese for those sufferers. Whereas emu spaghetti bolognese. The only thing about the emu is it's very, very lean meat. It's got no fat in it, or very little fat, and it's got zero sinew. and gristle. So you've got to cook it. You can't overcook it because it's not going to self sort of oil and fat.
Right.
And so you've got to cook it reasonably quickly in thin slices, but it's absolutely delicious. Tastes just like...
Making me very, very hungry. How do people feel about eating the coat of arms? You know, what's the market perception like?
Well, that's why the industry, one of the reasons the industry failed in the late 80s and early 90s is because of that problem. Predominantly, you know, white Caucasians in Australia didn't want to eat our coat of arms. But the whole demographic has changed in Australia now. We've got much more varied diets and varied tastes and very different ways of thinking about eating. But and so that has almost disappeared. There might be some of that, but what is really interesting is the way that people are interested in about their food, where it comes from, how it's lived, the animal welfare, the processing of the whole thing. So here we don't overgraze the ground. We're looking after nature. We've got natural sequence farming opportunities with a lot of birds and a lot of animals. This is a wonderful opportunity to have little farms. We're a little 80-acre farm here, and we will be able to have a very, very comfortable online or on-farm income coming from this farm with only 80 acres. So it's micro farming without having to plough the ground, without having to get every last millimetre or ounce of goodness out of the ground to be able to feed 5 cattle.
It's very attractive for that scale of farming because there's a lot more smaller farms now. Absolutely. I mean, we have a small farm, and you're constantly saying, well, what can you do? What's the economy here in what you produce? And I mean, there's lots of options, but you know, nothing. It's 100 acres never seems to be quite big enough to be that thing, you know. And in the traditional sense of farming,
100 acres with emu farming, with a $200,000, maybe $250,000 investment, in 3 years' time, will return you $150,000 a year. So that doesn't happen.
So for an off-grid lifestyle,
it's perfect.
It is really perfect as well. I mean, it's just the synergies are just spot on.
And in our little farm here, we can produce maybe 2 tonne a year of meat. And
so it's just a drop in the ocean.
It's a drop in the ocean. We're going to need like 400,000 tonne just to be able to deal with the market in Sydney, let alone the Central Coast, let alone everywhere else we are, let alone the export market. So we hope that our little farm here might be able to be a situation where we can say, right, startup farm, here's 50 babies. Startup farm, here's 50 chicks. Startup farm, here's 50 chicks. You then start the farms up. The farms might need some help, maybe low interest loans or something like that, to be able to get the fencing going. And then we've got to be able to show them how to do the fencing. Then we've got to show them how to do the incubating. We've got to show them how to do the hatching, all that sort of stuff. And we're here wanting to do that and being able to do that at no charge to us.
It's amazing to think that you're here in 2020 with such an obvious market and almost pioneering it.
That's right.
You know, like it's just incredible, really, isn't it? But I mean, it's really important work that you're doing because people are going to see that this is attractive. They're going to see that it makes sense, and they're going to need people like you who can go, rightio, this is the template, this is how it works, and this is what you do.
That's exactly what we're doing. Exactly what we're doing.
What's the regulation what's the regulation like?
The roadblocks are difficult at the moment.
Right. Okay. So that's part of it.
That's part of the problem, but that will be resolved. We've got people in the government, people in ag that are starting to look at it now. So I would think that by the time we've got here, you know, maybe a couple of 300 chicks ready to go to other farms, that will be ready to go. So we're talking a couple of years, maybe 2, maybe 3 seasons.
So we've talked about obviously meat, but there's numerous products that come out of it. So list off these products quickly for us that we come out of an emu.
So a bird will produce a bird weighs somewhere around about 50 to 60 kilos, and we're going to be producing about 15 kilos worth of table meat, probably about 5 kilos worth of other meat that you can use for things like beef jerky and chopped up meats, you know, mince and that sort of stuff. You then get the leather, and the leather is absolutely beautiful. There's a fantastic market for that, and very, very interesting because no 2 hides are going to be the same. Then you get the feathers, and the feathers are really, really interesting because they're good for they're good for the art and craft industry. They're also good for the light horse brigade and so forth, for the army and what have you. But where they're also really interesting is for feather dusters in the electronics industry, where you're making and you need to dust something down because they are zero static. So you're not going to get any dust settle back down on what you're doing. And also the car painting industry, where you're making Maseratis and that sort of stuff, and you want to dust this vehicle down and just make sure that it's gone in totally dust tree without any static that's going to attract dust when it's in the spray booth. So, and the, you know, and for NASA with the microchip industry and for the semiconductors and all that sort of stuff, the feathers are really, really interesting. So you go from the feathers, then we go to the oil. Now the oil is absolutely incredible. The bird will produce about 15 kilos of oil per bird.
Now, is that as well as the other products?
Yes.
It's not negating the other products. No. Right. Okay.
The oil production is better when you harvest in February, March. That's because the female and the male bird have got themselves into a position where they're storing fat ready to sit for 7 weeks without feeding, or to lay and produce 20 or 40 eggs. So then they need a lot of fat reserves. They will actually eat soil and all sorts of stuff just to build up their fat reserves. But the oil comes in 2 clumps. So you just carve the clump off the carcass.
So it's part of the offal. Is that right?
Not really. It's just like fat on a really fat steak or something like that. So you just carve it off. But it tends to be in 2 convenient little clumps, and you just cut these off, pop them into the renderer, and you render that down. And the really interesting thing about the oil is that if you take like a denker rub, for example, and you've got joint pain and you want to fix up your joint pain in your wrist or something like that, you'll get denker rub, which it's got an active ingredient in some cream, and you rub that on. About 20% of the cream and the active ingredient gets absorbed by the dermis of the skin. Emu, 80% of it gets absorbed by the dermis of the skin. So you're going to be getting more of the active ingredient to the problem area, to the joint, and what have you. So that's just one of the most amazing principles of it. The Aboriginals have known this for many, many hundreds and thousands of years, and they've been using the emu oil to help with joint pain, to help with skin issues, to help with burns, to help with eczema and stuff like that. But what's also really interesting is that you can turn the oil into capsules, and so you can take it orally, and it helps with reducing diabetes issues. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and my diabetes is maintained with emu oil tablets. Absolutely incredible. So I'm not taking any chemicals whatsoever. I'm just taking this emu oil tablet.
Excellent.
And not only that, but my back pain, my joint pain, my shoulder pain disappeared, vanished. You know, I'm so much better for it, and I think also my skin issues are a little better. You know, I seem to get less rashes and that sort of stuff, and heat rash and so forth. But it's absolutely incredible what the oil will do orally, what it'll do for you on the skin. It helps just rub that on, soften your skin, do all that sort of stuff.
Great.
So and then going from there, then you got the bones.
Bones. Okay, so there's more. Okay.
So there's more. So the bones are really, really good, and because you've got to remember that every part of this animal that's going to be consumed by a dog, for example, with the bones, and the carcass, which is going to be consumed for the pet food industry. We're already talking to the pet food industry down at Albury, and they're very, very interested in doing what we're doing. All that can be added to as part of an ingredient for the pets. But then let's go to the next stage, and that's the eggs. One emu egg is the equivalent of 10 chicken eggs. So if you ran a catering service, you got to feed 400 people, you and each person's taking 2 eggs, you need 800 eggs. Well, no, you don't. You need 80 emu eggs, and you go bang, bang, bang. So that process is a lot quicker. Plus, you've got some of the oil, which is
the egg a very similar
identical.
Is it really?
It's absolutely identical. Some people prefer not to have the oil on it, so you can break the eggs out into a jar and just put some absorption paper, leave that overnight, that absorbs the oil, bang, and away you go. You've got yourself the biggest omelette you're ever going to have. But so it's really good for the restaurant industries, for cakes, for obviously scrambled eggs and that sort of stuff. But you think about what you're going to be doing as a farm. So say, for example, when we're up and running and we're going with our farm, we're going to produce 150 birds a year to be processed, if it was one of your model farms that are going to be doing this, or 200 birds or 300 birds, whatever. Each bird that you've got on the farm roughly is going to produce about 10 eggs per bird. So if you've got 400 birds, you're going to end up with 4,000 eggs. Now you're only going to incubate 400 of those eggs to keep your production line going.
Right.
What are you going to do with the other 3,600 eggs? Well, my goodness, it goes straight to the pet food industry.
Right.
So the pet food industry can have this really high, fabulous protein egg that they can mix into the kibble.
So they're using the carcass, they're using the egg to mix into the canned, and it turns into a canned food or a dry food?
Dry food or both.
Yeah, okay.
So they can use it for anything, and they're starting to experiment this year. The Staunton group are going to start to do some experiments with different recipes for the animals. They're going to try them on animals, so dog food, cat food, all that sort of stuff.
But it was seen to be it's such a good resource for us. So we just
Absolutely.
Again, it's so like You just need to get into that. You know,
Well, you just think about where we have mass amounts of people that are having breakfast or having lunch or dinners and that sort of stuff. You think of the hotel industry. Think of the cruise industry. Think of all of those. Well, the cruise industry might fall apart now with the coronavirus, but think about all of those other things where you've got to have and break open 10 dozen eggs. And you've got to transport all those eggs, you got all of that. No, you just need 10 eggs.
I'm just thinking about the emu egg carton. You know, it's about as wide as this board here, and about that long for a dozen eggs.
Something like that. Well, you just think about other industries that do a similar thing. You think about the mango industry, for example. So an emu egg is about the same size as a mango. So there's your packaging.
It's all there.
It's all there. So bonk, bonk, there you go. One after the other. So it's or even the wine industry. You know, boxes they pack bottles of wine in, that sort of stuff. So you can have them all lying down. You put another piece on top of it, put another piece on top of that. Goes. You got to think about the weight of the eggs. Each egg weighs roughly 600 grams. So you have 10 of them. There's 6 kilos worth of eggs. And so you got to think about somebody lifting these things. So I think packets of 6 are probably about the way to go. Where you can easily handle them and keep them refrigerated and what have you.
Are you guys selling product yet? No. Through the Emu Hive? You're not at that point that it's sort of anything getting under the oil. You're taking your own oil for yourself, so you're not quite there yet. It's still in that sort of infancy.
No, we haven't slaughtered a bird yet, or produced or harvested a bird yet. So what? And we probably don't think that we will be, because we're going to be providing birds for startup farms. So we will be using the product and using the end product, no doubt about that.
So building the base for the industry, and then it all goes together. So when you do get a market and people are interested, then it's like, we've got 25 growers or 50 growers or whatever it is, and we can provide this product.
Yeah, we're currently working hand in glove with another farm over the Warren Bungles called Emu Logic.
Oh yeah,
they got about 1,500 birds over there, and they're starting an abattoir there, and so they're doing on-site harvesting.
How incredible are emus, and what an absolute pleasure it's been visiting the Emu Hive to learn all about them. So I think if anyone's watching this and you're wondering what to get into on a small acreage, emus. And contact these guys at the Emu Hive. I mean, they're relatively new to it, but the knowledge Mark and Wendy have is just amazing. So we've really appreciated you having us here today. It's been really fun. It's a beautiful afternoon. So we're going to say over and out from Off Grid Earth.